So you want bigger shoulders, and you're thinking about adding the behind the neck press into your program. Today I want to tell you how adding the behind the neck press into my program has increased my training and shoulder health dramatically, and I want to tell you how it could potentially help you and how you can incorporate it into your program. So first I want to explain how the traditional overhead press and behind the neck press is different biomechanically. For the traditional overhead press, your shoulders are more internally rotated. So they're more here, right? If you're grabbing the bar here and here, this is shoulder. The shoulder is internally rotated. When your shoulder is more internally rotated, you're going to be using more upper chest and front delt. Now for the behind the neck press, your shoulders are going to be more externally rotated back here. So the difference with this is that when your shoulders externally rotated, you're kind of taking the upper chest out of it. It's really stretched. You're not really flexing it or using it. Also, the rear delt, it is being used, but because your shoulder is more externally rotated, more of the tension is being put on the side delt, and technically the rear delt as well. Just think when you do a lateral raise, your shoulders are externally rotated. You start here and you raise here. This is why you feel a lot of tension in the side delt, where if you did a front raise like here, you feel tension in the front delt. Some people will say you're using your rear delts as well in the behind the neck press, so you're not really going through the range of motion when your shoulder's externally rotated like this, but this is squeezing your rear delt. So think of like doing a face pull. That is the range of motion for your rear delt. Any sort of like rowing that's shoulder level, that's your rear delt. So if you're here, you're squeezing your rear delt pretty much the whole time. So I don't know that you're not taking it through the range of motion. It's not going through the eccentric part. So I don't know if you're gonna like grow your rear delt very much, but you're technically flexing it. So for whatever that's worth, essentially the tension is being put more on the side and the rear of your delt. So doing the behind the neck press really just comes down to preference and what do you want to grow. If you are trying to grow your upper chest and your front delts and you want extra work there and so you don't care about your side delts, then it would make more sense to do a traditional arms in front of you, kind of close together overhead press. But I think that if you're already pressing in your program, whether it's incline, flat, dumbbell, barbell, whatever, and you incorporate the traditional overhead press as a side delt lift, I think it's really more of a front delt and upper chest lift, at least for me. That's where I feel it. So I feel like you are getting side delt as well, but you're already getting so much front delt and upper chest from regular pressing. I think it just makes more sense to pick a lift that would isolate more of your side delt. Now, this obviously poses the question or concern of people who can't do the behind the neck press because of range of motion issues, and maybe it's just uncomfortable, things like that. What I would say for this is to, one, definitely warm up your shoulders before you do the behind the neck press. Like I will do things like band pull aparts, shoulder dislocations, stuff like that. Anything where you're like reaching your arms behind your back like this, even just doing this and stretching out, doing arm circles, anything to warm up your shoulders. That is definitely going to help you. And the second thing is that you don't necessarily have to do anything with weight right away. Like if you can't even do the range of motion, literally just find a broomstick or something that weighs little to nothing and just do the range of motion as much as you can. Like even if all you can do is come down to your head and stop, and then it starts to you just can't do it, that's fine. Just sit here and almost kind of stretch it out. Just feel it and go back up and do it, and just treat it as though it was a normal set for overhead pressing, and do that every session. And if you're at a point where you're just working on range of motion, I would even do that every single day. Warm up your shoulders every day, grab the broomstick, and just, practice that range of motion. So the reason that I would incorporate the behind the neck press, or reason number 2, is that I have just felt that since incorporating this lift for my shoulders, it has felt my shoulders have felt dramatically better. Like they just feel, I don't even know how to describe it, just like bulletproofed, or I just feel like invincible for my shoulders. Like I could just put them in any weird position and I still feel strong, where I did not feel that when I just did the traditional overhead press. Sure, my shoulders were strong, I can hold things above my head, but I felt that if my shoulders got in a weird position, it was like not going to be good. For the people out there who think that this is going to impinge the shoulder, this may harm your shoulder, I'll try to explain this the best that I can, but your scapula does an upward rotation. So if you're looking at someone's back, right, and like if I was turned around and you were looking at my back and these were my scapulae, as I press up like this, they rotate out. And like if this was, or I'll do it here, if this was a scapula, my humerus is over here. As the humerus, that's not a very good angle. As the scapula rotates up, the humerus rotates with it as well, right? So here, I'll do this. So this side here, if this is the scapula and this is the humerus in the joint, impingement would occur if your humerus went up like this and your scapula did not rotate up. But as you're pressing upward, if you watch your back, or you watch someone's back, or if you just even reach behind and feel your scapula, it's rotating upward. So as it's rotating upward like this, the joint and the socket and joint of your humerus is rotating up with it. So you're not going to impinge it, especially when you're in the externally rotated position. You're actually opening up the scapula to where they're usually a little rounded, because most people have a little bit of rounded shoulders. Now they're flat, and now they're really rotating upward as your arms come up. This is why people say for the traditional overhead press like this, to shrug your shoulders at the top just to get that little bit of upward rotation of the scapula, so you can lock out better and you don't impinge your shoulder, because you're probably more likely to impinge it in the traditional way if you're like, because if you can picture, your humerus is now straight to the scapula back here, and if you just moved your arm, I could still feel my scapula rotating upward, but like if you try to not move it up, maybe you can impinge it, I don't know, but that's why you give the little shrug and head tilt at the top to prevent that. But yeah, you're not gonna you're not going to impinge your shoulder. The opposite is going to happen. Your shoulders are going to feel great after doing behind the neck press, and after you can get up to, doing the full range of motion, and then especially when you start adding weight to it, it's gonna, you just have to trust me. It's not going to impinge your shoulder, despite what people may say or think. If it does impinge your shoulder, then why are all the people who do them still doing them and they're fine? I mean, this was like a staple exercise back in the old school bodybuilding from the 40s, 50s, definitely in the 70s. That was they did more behind the neck press than they did regular pressing. So yeah, if there's been no problems in history, so there won't be any problems in the future. I'll just leave it at that. So you might think, well, it's just difficult to do, and you feel like it's just not worth it. And the reason it's difficult is because we spend a lot of our time throughout our day in the opposite position. So instead of, externally rotated, we're more internally rotated. Even me sitting here, I'm a little bit hunched over. We all naturally do it. It's just the way we do our daily things. So that's why it's difficult to actually get back here. But I think you should challenge yourself and actually train in that way, because it is difficult. Because one, your body can do it. It should do it. It's supposed to do it. Just 'cause you don't use it frequently, and that's why it feels like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this. No, if you don't do it, you lose it. So train the things that you aren't in the positions a lot to be able to maintain those things. That's, really just the whole longevity aspect of it, and feeling like you're just bulletproofing your shoulders. The other thing for hypertrophy, say you don't care about longevity, well, okay, for hypertrophy, one, I've already said you're putting more tension on the side delt because you're eliminating upper chest and front delt, and you're putting it in a hard and difficult position, which is going to strain and force the muscle to work harder, which is that's what needs to happen for hypertrophy to occur. The muscle needs to be under stress. So, if you think, oh, well, I could just do the overhead press. Yeah, but there's a lot of other things, other variables, and other muscles that can take over, like the upper chest, the front delts, hip hinging if you're doing that, even a little, leg, moving your hips and bending your knees if you're doing that too. Where if you're just doing a strict behind the neck press, it's all side delt. As you increase your behind the neck press weight, your shoulders are going to get bigger. They can't not get bigger, because you can't do the behind the neck press with any other muscle. So it's just a really great way to isolate the side delt. And it's just a great way to make your shoulders feel good. So kind of the course I took with that was, when I first started lifting, I did overhead press. That was the thing to do, traditional overhead press. Did that for a while. Didn't really see much shoulder growth, to be honest with you. I got a little bit, but for me, it was always front delt and upper chest. I just never, even my side delts barely even got a pump. So then I started introducing lateral raises. Then I noticed some actual visual changes in my side delts. And then really recently, literally within the last month or two, I've done behind the neck press, on and off, not consistently, multiple times a week, but I've been doing it at least once a week for a couple months, and I've definitely, it's the biggest and quickest difference I've noticed in my side delts. And like I said, my shoulders just feel like so much better because of it. So yeah, I think that you should give it a try, especially if you're looking for something to just stimulate your side delt more. Like the pump I get in my side delt is like not even comparable to lateral raises. It really isn't. It's like almost the best exercise I've done for my side delts up until this point. And for people who are just like they can't even reach behind the back and do the scratch test, like, which is, you reach your hand behind your back and you try to scratch your opposite scapula. If you can't do that, that's a perfect reason to start doing the behind the neck press. Start with the broomstick and just practice the range of motion. Get a band, do your band pull parts, do the dislocations, which are these. Warm up the shoulders really good and just practice the range of motion and just, work up to adding weight. And I'm telling you, if you treat this exercise like any other lift, like say the deadlift, everyone thinks you gotta get the deadlift down, you gotta take it seriously. If you just treated the behind the neck press like that lift and gave it the time, the energy, and the patience, it will pay off for you. It definitely has for me, even in a short time, and I'm really looking forward to doing this for a long time. So yeah, that's all I had for you today. I'll see you in the next one.